What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Over the weekend, I talked a little bit about something that would be annoying Sony, and that has to do with, believe it or not, a PlayStation 5 emulator. And after I made that video, things started to get even crazier and accelerate more, and we're going to go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about the Switch 2 with a potential upgrade that may have leaked out a bit early through suppliers and multiple sources. And we have Halo, which Halo Campaign Evolved is coming out here in a few weeks. And wouldn't you know it, there's trouble or turmoil at Halo Studios, formerly 343, which just shows that, yeah, the Halo series just really can't catch a break. But we'll go over all of that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps it a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. Also, we are now on Spotify. Full video and audio is available there. We're going to build up a following there on Spotify as well. So if you're over there, like, comments, whatever else they have going on, but I'll have it linked down below in the description. And we're going to start today with Octopath Traveler 1 and 2 on the Switch 2, as we do have Switch 2 editions that have now been announced. They're out currently in Japan, like they just released immediately on announcement, and then it looks like other parts of the world are coming out October 1st, but like we can see, now this is over on Gamatsu, and they do cite Square Enix the information on this, and I saw this and just I just had to shake my head at it. So I mean, like, look, $6 each or $75 for a bundle. We're looking like it's gonna be a game key card for this situation anyway, if you want to get it physically. But they all say there is a Switch version of the game. You gotta select the version you require carefully. There are no plans to sell an upgrade pack to upgrade the Switch 1 version to the Switch 2 version, and then your save data is incompatible between the two versions. So, like, if you've already been playing the game and you go, oh, maybe there is a $10 upgrade path, and my save data will carry over, so it's looking like better resolution, better frame rate, makes sense going up to the Switch 2. But here we are again with some of these companies just treating it like it's a brand new release for the Switch 2, when it makes a ton of sense to have some sort of upgrade path for people who bought into the series, or in this case, either one of these games years ago on the Switch 1, but I don't know, Square Enix being Square Enix, I guess. If you haven't played either game, they're good. So I guess there is that silver lining. There is a Switch 2 version for people who maybe buy into the platform now for the first time and want some really good RPGs, certainly some very unique even RPGs to check out. Also, it looks like Kingdom Hearts fans won't have to wait too much longer to hear more about potentially Kingdom Hearts 4, but just about the franchise in general at D23, which is happening next month, August 14th to the 16th. There's an entire section that's dedicated to it. We can see this is over on their D23 website. It's a deep dive into Kingdom Hearts, saying join us for a journey through light and darkness as we commemorate 25 years of Kingdom Hearts. That makes me feel quite old there. Discover how this saga united Disney, Pixar, and Square Enix with insights from the creative minds, character voices, and more behind the magic. So obviously that'll be a lot of fun for fans of the Kingdom Hearts franchise. But also, I mean, to me, it's hard to imagine they do this at D23 without anything new to share around Kingdom Hearts 4, and that's what a lot of people are expecting out of this one. I'm sure you'll also get some fun nods and bits and pieces of lore, but everyone's kind of going here saying, hey, you know what? Let's see what's happening here with Kingdom Hearts 4, especially since there have been rumors around the idea of it releasing in 2027. So keep an eye out for that one. Again, if you're a Kingdom Hearts fan, it's most likely you're going to get some new details there. Oh, when I saw this pop up, and I figured I would throw it in here as kind of a gaming deal that's currently ongoing, and that's for the camera on the Switch 2, specifically the Nintendo branded one, and you can see over on GameStop right now. It's listed as C price in cart, and if you put in your cart, it's $10, which, look, that is, you talk about impulse buy territory. If you kind of passed up on this, and maybe you saw the Star Fox stuff where they overlay one of the characters from the game onto you, and you kind of have like your VTuber moment there. They use the camera in fun ways, but I understand why people may have been like, I don't want to spend the extra money on it at launch when it was, I mean, quite a bit more expensive than $10. So just wanted to point that out. If you were someone who was curious about it, $10, it's actually not a bad deal for the camera. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with a developing story that all of a sudden, after years of these things existing, have really started to pick up steam, almost like something happened, I don't know, in the last 2 weeks or so with Sony that maybe has annoyed the internet. Maybe there's some scorned PlayStation or even PC users out there who want to take matters in their own hands and develop a PlayStation 5 emulator, which sounds weird because you look at a lot of these systems that we've had and typically need some pretty powerful hardware, more powerful by quite a margin than the original system it's based on. Like, look at the PS3. Has, 256 megabytes of RAM, but you need a pretty substantial system now to play it at like 1080p, 60 frames per second, something like that. In this case, though, with the PS5, it's a little different because it is an x86 system, so people have kind of made the case that, hey, it's a bit different than having to emulate everything, as it can kind of have more of like a translation layer working in tandem with parts of it being emulated. Think of how we have like Steam, or Valve will have like Proton with the Steam Deck or Steam Machine, something like that. Well, with all that in mind, things have been accelerating rapidly right now. I just did a video over the weekend going over some of the breakthroughs that have happened, which really just came down to, hey, this 2D game is actually working somewhat. There are still graphical issues and that sort of thing, but any kind of game that was somewhat substantial, like Demon's Souls, it got to the opening screen, and then it would just do a video loop, and that was it. Nothing else was really starting up. And now all of a sudden, like we can see, now this is over on Respawn First, who is noting this. Again, this all happened like 48 hours after my video this weekend. And they're mostly honing in here on Kaitai, which is a PS5 emulator. There's also Sharp Emu. Those seem to be the two leading ones that I have seen so far. But Kaitai has now been shown to load Grand Theft Auto 5 far enough to reach the game's menu and settings. Quake 2, it's also been shown reaching gameplay. So we are actually getting into gameplay somewhat here with 3D-based games. Power Wash Simulator and Pac-Man World are also being rendered in-game. And while none of them are fully playable yet, I mean, the development, just a few days from, like I said, when I made the video, has been staggering. And when I took a look at the GitHub pages, I mean, the commits that are happening as people are working on these, just an hour ago, before I started recording here, there was a whole new version that was put out, and the commits are off the charts right now over the last, like week or so. Yeah, it's picking up pretty well, and this becomes kind of interesting for Sony, because I don't think all of a sudden these PS5 emulators are going to start loading up Grand Theft Auto 6 later this year. It's still going to be a while before we have some pretty complex games playable from start to finish on, we'll say, modest hardware. Like, not everyone out there has a 5090 and 24 thread CPU at their disposal. But here's the thing. Sony, I believe, is going to be working with the PS5 for quite some time. I think we'll be mid-2030s, and the PS5 logo will still be showing up at the end of trailers for cross-gen titles. I don't think it'll be first-party games necessarily, although who knows how the PS6 could potentially launch above $1,000. That could take a while to get a number of those systems out there. But I do think, at least for the first 4 years, Sony will be doing first-party cross-gen. And the way that these things are accelerating, I even looked at some of the contributors, and yeah, you guessed it, they have AI working on this. Claude is in there, and I mean, who knows what some people, I'm sure, are doing like the vibe coding thing where you have the AI code for you. Others may be having QA where it's going through and finding any bugs that they're having an issue with. The point is, there is a concerted effort right now to get a legitimate PlayStation 5 emulator off the ground. And again, the timing lines up with people just kind of being annoyed with Sony, and this might be a way for them to stick it to them further by, again, people are saying they're not going to buy a PS6. That's fair. It could be very expensive. But also tuning out of PlayStation Plus, and they look around and go, man, what if there was a PS5 emulator on the scene? That would probably really annoy Sony. And yeah, they'd be right. So I think there's some motivation on that side. But honestly, just the technological side is quite interesting here for an emulator like this. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on this just to see if we have any other major breakthroughs, and I'll keep you guys up to date on it. Next up, let's talk about the Switch 2 and a potential upgrade for the system that may have leaked out a bit early through supply lines and multiple sources. Now, we can see this is over on ZDNet, and it is translated from Korean into English using like Google Translate here, but it's still getting an idea as to what exactly is being said. with them saying Nintendo is considering releasing a Switch 2 OLED with the resolution upgraded from HD, so 1280 by 720 on the Switch 1 OLED model, to like full HD, the 1920 by 1080. Going on to say, if the release of the Switch 2 OLED model is decided, there is a possibility that product development will begin at the end of this year. If development starts at the end of this year, mass production can be expected as early as the end of 2027 or the beginning of 2028. Okay, so there is a bit of a hang up here. They say Samsung Display will strive to supply Switch 2 OLEDs to Nintendo, but the extent of the price increase for the Switch 2 resulting from the application of OLED is a variable, and it's just a weird time right now in general. So I think most of us figure, just based on the timeline of events with the Switch 1, we would eventually get a Switch 2 OLED. As one of the weak points of the Switch 2 that people have noted, it's the screen. And I know not everyone sees it. There is ghosting with the Switch 2 screen. It's been shown just objectively through testing that is a low point in terms of quality for the system. And look, an OLED screen on the Switch 2 would be pretty good. I think people would be very, very excited for that. I would be. The Switch 1 OLED looks significantly better, just in terms of the color output, the quality of it, versus the Switch 2 LCD. So if we kind of can have best of both worlds there, and that just have a Switch 2 OLED down the road, I'd be all in on that immediately. And just the timeline of events, you kind of figure that. Like, I'm not expecting a Switch 2 Pro, but a Switch 2 OLED or a Switch 2 Lite makes a lot of sense. Nintendo does revise their systems. They did it throughout the Switch 1 generation. They'll do it this generation as well, probably after, 3 years or so. And that does kind of line up here. The problem Nintendo runs into, as everyone else is alongside of them, the prices are going up because RAM is getting more and more expensive. The companies who are providing the RAM are telling people, man, the RAM shortage is a shame. I don't know what we're going to do other than make a bunch of money, because SK Hynix goes public and all of a sudden they're worth, 20-something billion overnight. And it's just going to get worse according to them, which also according to them means that they're going to make more money because the RAM, you get the idea there. But the point is, the Switch 2 will probably get more expensive just because of that. And then Nintendo has to look around and go, okay, that, but with an OLED screen. Where does that put us in terms of price territory? I mean, I have concerns that next year, holiday 2027, the Switch 2 could actually be like $599.99, like just $600. And that's the current one, not an OLED. So one strategy you could do is, okay, the system is going to be priced more premium. How do we make it feel more premium? The OLED screen, believe it or not, just based on some of the components, would be one of the cheaper things going into the system. So maybe Nintendo goes, hey, it's an OLED Switch 2. We'll do a few other things to, like, with the Switch 1 OLED, they did a kickstand, a better kickstand. They did the LAN port on the dock and, like, hyped that up, which kind of funny, right? But still, it was there. So maybe they come up with a few other things they can hype up that's not over the top, crazy expensive, and put it out there at a higher price, but also show it being more of a premium product. It's hard to say, because the move right now for Nintendo should be making it cheaper, which would then play into a Switch 2 Lite. But by the time they get there, the Switch 2 Lite being cheap might just be $450, which is just what the Switch 2 launched at. So it's tough to figure this out right now with how quickly the market's shifting, but a Switch 2 OLED makes sense, and I would like to see it by 2028, but again, who knows with the uncertainty of the market currently. Next up, let's talk about Halo Studios and a report that's come out that's now also been corroborated further by Windows Central, and that has to do with, go figure, management issues within the company. It's like just Halo can't catch a break at this point. The franchise that I've grown up with and then loved playing through. It's like, man, for some reason they just can't make a Halo game anymore without there just being some weird turmoil behind the scenes. And that trend continues. Now, Halo Campaign Evolved is coming out later this month. I'll be checking it out there on Xbox, on PlayStation, and playing through it, giving my thoughts on that. So stay tuned for that whole thing. But for now, Halo Studios, who's been criticized up and down because of all the issues that have been happening, there's one more thing to tack on the board here, which we can see. This is over on Windows Central, saying Rebs Gaming reported that Halo Studios was working on a multiplayer title known as Project Ecker. We've actually discussed that before. It was kind of like this, it sounded like it was going to be a battle royale extraction shooter with Spartans. It didn't unfortunately come to fruition. I would say unfortunately because I would have been curious just to see what their take would have been on it. It's been canceled. Now, Windows Central Jez Corden has verified that is 100% true. However, while they couldn't verify everything Hince is accused of saying in Reb's video, unfortunately, comments they've received lend weight to some of these allegations. That being Pierre Hince, who is leading the way there at Halo Studios, saying sources infer that harbors a capacity for creating friction between his team and Xbox more broadly, and it suggested that he is a controversial figure internally. It's really come down to, based on Reb's gaming video, like verbal abuse. It's just not being a great environment to create in, and kind of walking on eggshells, him basically tearing your work down constantly, and it being very difficult to get something even like Halo Campaign Evolved to the finish line, which, according to Reb's Gaming, a lot of the credit there just for the developers who, scratched and clawed their way to the finish line for Halo Campaign Evolved, which now I'm thinking, oh, okay, how is this game going to really turn out? We'll find out here in a couple of weeks. It has gone gold, so it is coming out here at the end of July. But people are making calls to Asha Sharma now on hey, you got to get this figured out. And you know what? Yes, she has to get this figured out. She has already said, hey, we are going to invest in some of our bigger properties, which does include Halo. So you got to go take a look at Halo Studios and see what has to be done if indeed there is this toxic workplace culture that's happening there. You've got to weed it out and get this all back on track for Halo Studios, because Halo should be a franchise that is much larger than it is now. It's in a sad state of affairs there. And I do think Halo has a future ahead of it if they have the right people in place to lead it there. But for now, it just seems like there's more issues. And of course, it's Halo can't catch a break. So I guess if nothing else, I hope Halo Campaign Evolved is really good and it can kind of get things back on track, if nothing else, for the franchise as a reboot, even though it'll be on PlayStation, which is going to be awkward because I don't think another Halo game is going to be on PlayStation again for a while, just based on the way that Microsoft is moving now, apparently, with their Xbox console exclusives. In our last bit of news, let's talk about College Football 27 with EA, because something odd happened here. Now, with college football, they, of course, have plenty of spots that EA can put in microtransactions, which with sports games in general, we've seen 2K go crazy with this, with their basketball games as an example. Well, with college football, EA, they tried to really push things here with progression boosters, right? Maybe you don't want to have to level all the way up to 100. You can give them some money and they'll just jump you straight ahead. Well, we can see this is over on IGN, who had the original story, saying, in College Football 25 and 26, offline versions of these modes allowed players to customize their experience by using settings to boost experience gain. In College Football 27, EA has gutted those settings, replacing them with the option to spend real-world money to increase things like a player's coach level. These microtransactions range from $10 to $150. What in the world? Anyway, this didn't work out. People really let EA have it, laid into them on social media. And then EA came back saying, your feedback on Road to Glory and Dynasty is that we've missed the mark with the introduction of paid progression options. This was added independent of deeper mode progression with the aim to give players more choice. But what you said is that they're not adding the value we intended. So as of July 11th, the changes and removal of these microtransactions has gone into effect. I love the idea of them saying, oh, we aim to give players more choice, but the previous couple of years, it was just an option. It was a slider. So you can play around with boosted experience gain, of course in offline mode, because, if you're online and it's competitive, everything has to be even playing field, right? But they looked at the sliders and said, hey, that's money, right? That's microtransactions. That's how it comes down to with a lot of these bigger companies that do want to get more money, of course, out of you, even after you spend $70, in some cases more money for early access games. These sports games in particular, there's a lot of motivation for people to spend more money to get a head start on the competition when they play online. So think about that. You spend $100 some odd, and then there's microtransactions on top of it that weren't there the year before, because you had what were effectively, you could say, cheat codes or sliders then that changed experience. And that's exactly what this reminds me of, by the way. A lot of the microtransaction effects when it comes to progression boosts used to just be cheat codes back in the day, and those are long gone now, and they have indeed been replaced by the cheat code just being your credit card, really. So EA, At least here, a lot of the people did band together, push back, and EA decided to withdraw on it, at least for this year. Something tells me, though, they're probably going to go back to the drawing board to see what they can maybe incorporate that's not so egregious for College Football 28. So stay tuned for that one. And before we go to the comments of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, if you had a Switch 1, which model was your primary system? I figured the original or the red box version would be number one. It was 62% there. But then look at the Switch OLED, 33%. So I do think there were a number of people, of course, that upgraded to it, or I guess you could say kind of a lateral step. It's not like the hardware itself got like more powerful, all of a sudden outputting 4K, but that screen, that's a game changer. I mean, seriously, the OLED model, the OLED screen is still the best screen that Nintendo has, we'll say, in the Switch family of systems, okay? And then the Switch Lite, 5%, which is interesting. I guess that wouldn't be your primary system for everyone. Some people maybe use the Switch Lite as like a secondary system, maybe one they travel with, or yeah, maybe they have around the house, I guess. The Switch Lite is such an interesting form factor because you could kind of look at it as a Vita successor almost, okay? Again, the Vita did have like an OLED screen and some interesting features to it, but it is the idea of a handheld-only system that plays console games. That's kind of what the Vita was trying to do. So still, for me, the Switch 1 OLED is an awesome device, all right? I still have it out. I'll go back to it occasionally, here and there, and that screen, still the best experience Nintendo's put out. I mean, you could say then in the last 10 years. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Painter, who says, this whole digital thing sounds like the NFT thing that happened a few years ago. How did that work out? Unfortunately, very badly. And I say unfortunately because the core concept of the non-fungible token is actually, I think, good in terms of technology. It just was used and abused for, I don't know, money laundering or like hundreds of millions of dollars for images of just the most random, stupid stuff. And the original plan, and again, it sounds good, is, hey, we can have a unique ID for a digital item that is tracked separately from any centralized like company. So if Sony did sell you a digital game, it would have a unique ID that is not stored with Sony. It's like off they had on like the blockchain, but basically it's decentralized and it's able to be tracked away from Sony, and you can show proof of ownership for that digital good. Like, it lines up, it makes sense. Unfortunately, NFT is just a dirty word at this point, and with the history of it, why wouldn't it be? So it's kind of like back to the drawing board for even that. It's like, what can they come up with to make it so that if you buy a digital product, a digital good, you have legitimate ownership of it, and a company like Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, whoever, can't then just revoke access to it because they feel like it one day, right? Or you would be able to transfer it. You could sell it, you could trade it, you could just give it away if you want. But right now we're locked in these closed ecosystems, and that's one of the reasons that I and many other people believe that we're just not ready for the all-digital future yet, because in a generation for the PS5 where Sony should have been working all of this out, they kind of sat on their hands and decided not to. Are they going to speed run this thing leading up to the PlayStation 6 console launch where it's going to be all digital? I'll have to see that to believe it. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you wanted to hear more about the whole Sony situation, or even Microsoft, where they're making a ton of cuts and resetting just about everything about the business. We did a whole podcast on that over the weekend, and I'll leave it right below. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.